welcome everyone to our Re-Animator virtual screening and now Re-Animator the musical reunion. So this is really exciting because 10 years ago, I did an NPR story on this because I saw that it was being made into a stage play and a musical and that there was a splash zone, and I could not resist the combination of all that. And so I actually got an NPR story talking about the splash zone, and that's when I got to meet Stuart and got to see the show. And that was the first of more than 24 performances I attended, including Miguel and I crossed the Atlantic to go see the show at Edinburgh, where I packed 200 of these pom-poms into my suitcase along with lyric sheets so that we could teach everyone at Edinburgh to sing the Miskatonic fight song. So I know that some of you who are here have only gotten to see the movie and have never had an opportunity to see the musical. So we're going to kick off, while we're letting people filter in, we're going to kick off with a little teaser video from Re-Animator the musical.
The human brain. One by one, the cells give up the ghost. 12 minutes pass, and then after 12, then after 12, the brain is toast. Good God!
If Dr. Hill says he thought it up,
I thought it up,
he thought it up,
I thought it up,
that's good enough, it's very clear that Dr. Hill's the Dr. Hill, and he's the final word. Don't do that again!
Mr. West, I suggest you get a pen.
So what I want to know real quick, Beth, from you, do you think that the people in the audience right now are more sad if they missed it or if they saw it and missed it now?
I think if they've missed it, at least we have the experience.
Beth, would you like to introduce our guests?
Sure. All right. Well, I'm going to go introduce people according to my Zoom screen. So don't take offense, anyone. It doesn't seem to be entirely alphabetical or anything. But let me start with Dean Schramm, who was one of the producers on this and one of the people who helped me get to that first Re-Animator show back in Los Angeles so that I could do this NPR piece, which was terribly exciting. And you took this show to Vegas, New York, Edinburgh. Why don't we, before we get to anyone else, why don't you just talk a little bit about how this got off the ground to begin with?
Well, first of all, thanks so much, Beth, for inviting me to join this wonderful panel. Stuart had been a client of mine for many years. I was his agent. And then I started producing with him in 2010 or so. And this really was his idea. As the director of the film, he always had in his mind that he wanted to adapt the film into a musical. And we chatted about it, and he identified a composer who he thought was the perfect guy to write the music and do the book, and that was Mark Nutter, based upon a show that he had seen that Mark had written called The Bicycleman. And so Stuart came to me and he said, let's do this. And I thought it was a fabulous idea. And the book of the show was written and adapted by the same screenwriters who wrote the film, including Dennis Paoli, who I think is among our group today. And so we got off the ground and we started casting the show, and Stuart, Stuart was just an amazing creative force, as he always has been in his career. And it was just an amazing, wonderful ride, which is going to keep going.
Well, and you mentioned that he brought some of the people from the film on board, but your special effects team for the musical actually included people from the film.
That's right. It was the same special effects group from the film who did the special effects for the show. And, there were a lot of interesting adaptations that we had to do, of course, as a result of it being a live performance. But these guys know how to do blood.
They sure do.
And they were great. And we used lots of it.
And this show, for those of you who've never been, this show had the attraction of the first 3 rows were called the Splash Zone. And the first time I went, it looked like Dexter's Kill Room because it was just wrapped in plastic. And you could sit there and get sprayed with blood repeatedly during the show. And that was, how can anyone resist that? And let's introduce, you mentioned Dennis, and Dennis Paoli is also here. So Dennis, hop on board with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a great opportunity to see all these guys again. I was always, I'm the one in New York. So I'm always the last one. I'm always the first one on the project and the first one off. So I had to sneak into some performances and see how great they were. And it was just, I think heartwarming is the wrong word, but it was thrilling.
Bloodletting.
It was thrilling to see what the movie, the film, transformed into another medium. And I knew Stuart from early in his theater days. Matter of fact, I knew Stuart from just about the beginning of his theater days. We've been friends since we were teenagers. And I, at first worked a lot in the theater with Stuart. So I was totally confident that he'd be able to turn this into a terrific show, but not as terrific as it actually ended up being. And a lot of that credit goes to, as Dean was saying, to Mark Nutter, who did a terrific score, just a spectacular score, and to all the other people you're going to meet who were just great. They were great.
Mark, please come on board now that you've been mentioned.
Hello, you mean me and not Mark Beltzman, who's at a wedding?
Yes. So talk a little bit about doing the music for this, because, Miguel and I went to see it at least 24 times, and the music, we never tired of the score at all. And it's fabulous.
Thank you. It was really a kick to work with Stuart, who's kind of been, I knew him in Chicago. And I worked with the Organic Theater briefly. I played keyboards for a show called Warp, which was his comic book on stage. So, and then we lost touch for quite a long time until he came to see this show that I wrote the music for called The Bicycle Man. And he said, well, you're the guy to do it. So it took about 3 years, I guess, to write the music. And, I'd write a song and Stuart would say, great, keep going. And so I go write another song. And he said, that's great. Write another one. And, by the time that process was over, we had a show that was maybe 85% music, something closer, I think, to an operetta, really, than a stage musical, which was fine with Stuart. He said, well, leave it all in. All right. But he was, sometimes I think he thought I was making it too funny. He would say, that's funny. It's going to be scary too, though, right? and I think we got it, we got a lot of funny, and he got his scary in, and I'm totally delighted. And it's wonderful to see all these faces again, these people who brought this thing to life on stage. I love all these guys. So
it gets said, I get credit for writing the musical, and it's based very much on the Re-Animator. It's very, very closely based to it's wonderful how faithful it is to the film. But the fact is, my writing job on the musical was mostly to make sure that the lines, that the spoken lines fit well with the music. Mark is actually the author of the musical. It's almost entirely in his voice now, which is a
That's
great.
kind of you to say, but there were so many lines that are lyrics now. Lines in the movie that had became lyrics. I felt a certain amount of pressure knowing the reputation that the movie Re-Animator had. That I didn't want to mess it up at all. So I figured I would be on safe ground if I would use all that dialogue that everybody knows. Cat dead. Details later. Just one of them. One of the many cat songs in the show.
Don't expect it to tango. It has a broken back.
And there's the other cat song.
And let's bring on Rachel Avery.
How are you? This is so fun. Oh my goodness.
Rachel's intended on stage, Chris McKenna.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I have a raspy voice. I've been partying like Rachel Avery.
Is that possible?
And let's go with the dean of the college, George Wendt.
Or Daddy?
Daddy.
There.
Yeah.
We're getting there. Okay.
There you are.
Right.
Hello.
Hello.
Whiskey.
And then how about the Grant machine, Jesse Merlin? Or Dr. Hill?
Hey, Jesse.
Yes, I was going to say, I was so witty. I was going to say, I've suffered from my art. Now it's your turn. This was, I just got to share with you, one of the wonderful crazy fans of the show made a Dr. Hill action figure. And so here's her head. The torso is elsewhere.
Oh God,
Yes.
And I even have some gristle left from my severed head. Some nurney.
Amazing.
Oh, and then let's introduce Graham Skipper, who probably grabbed some of that gristle from your hair when he was moving your severed head around. Graham, Dr. Herbert West, or Mr. Herbert West.
Yeah, Mr. Yes.
Mr. I'm sorry.
Never graduated grad school or never graduated doctoral school. Hi, everybody. I found my original glasses.
No,
I am wearing them, and they're caked in ancient blood. And I'll tell you, it was a real experience putting these on for the first time in, better part of a decade. That was pretty cool. Love you guys.
Awesome.
Hey, bud.
And then Cynthia Carle.
Yes, I am unmuted now, but you can't, but my face is not here yet, is it?
No.
That's just as well, isn't it, really?
No, we need your face, Cynthia.
There it is.
There you are.
Hey, guys. Hi, guys. And this is Stuart Gordon.
Yes. Yay.
Nice picture of Stuart. Oh, and this is, you know what this is? This is a really nice little.
Oh, yes.
Lauren Cupp made all these
I
wonderful.
believe Lauren made that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
Oh, you still have that?
Of course I do. It's a beautiful little thing.
Oh.
I have
All right.
mine too. I don't know where it is.
I do
And
too.
and then let's bring Liesel Hanson.
Liesel.
Hi.
Yay.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I was about to run and get my little picture from Lauren, but I had a feeling that now was not the time to get away from the screen somehow. Thank you so much for having me. So happy.
All right. Then we have Marlon Grace.
Marlon.
He's getting coffee.
No, I was,
Yes.
Hey.
I was looking for my little picture too. I have it. It's close by, but sorry, I couldn't get it. Hello, everybody. Nice to see everyone.
And Brian
Here.
Gillespie.
Hello.
Hey, Rufus.
Greetings from Las Vegas.
And our last person are Paul and Laurie Wee. Paul, why don't you introduce yourself? Because people may not have ever seen you on stage, but you created some artwork for this.
Well, yeah, I was one of the show poster artists. I went from mega fan to making t-shirts to doing posters.
T-shirts.
And I also had the honor of working directly with Stuart Gordon to do an animated version of Re-Animator the musical before he passed away, sadly.
All right, so we have, I believe, all our panelists here. We may be, Mark Beltzman may join us from his nephew's wedding if he has the opportunity. So if he pops in, we'll jump to him because we're not sure how much time he might have. So Miguel, I've occupied a bunch of time here. Why don't you, if you have a question that you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I'm going to rope around to a couple of things we've already started discussing. First of all, for Dennis Paoli, you know, this is a similar question is going to go to the actors as well. But I think one of the reasons that the film has held up so well and has stood out amongst the pantheon of similar styled 80s kind of splatter horror from that home video era is that the acting is really superb and the dialogue is really clever and superb. And what, like, for example, you know, you already mentioned Cat Dead details later, but I do think that exchange with the snapping of the pencils leading up to Mr. West, I suggest you get yourself a pen. Like, not just how it's delivered, but it's a perfect line. Like, that kind of outstanding writing, it's not in a lot of those movies. So I do want to hear about, like, coming up with those zingers that Mark Nutter was talking about. Like, they're so good he had to make them lyrics.
I've always thought of Re-Animator. I mean, actually from back when I was writing it, working with the guys and writing it, I've always thought of Re-Animator in a somewhat different light from the way I guess most other oh, Mark.
Hey.
It's the first time I think I've ever seen him in a tie. Is that true?
Yeah.
Just answer the question and get on with it. I've always seen Re-Animator not just somewhat different from most other 80s splatter films, in that I always considered it to be a satire of academia. It's hence the pencil breaking, the madness not only of Herbert West, but Dr. Hill, his sort of hidden madness, and the madness of the healthcare system, the madness of institutions of higher learning, and the healthcare system. You layer all that madness on and you get not just the foundation for a horror film, but you get some pretty crazy interactions too. So mostly we just let Stuart and I and Bill at the beginning, set the characters up in relation to each other in the situations that we created and let them go. And they turned out to be, as we had hoped they would be. They turned out to be not only horrific, but hilarious as well.
I love that one of the main motives driving the violence is plagiarism.
Yes, that's right.
Results in decapitation and other nasty acts.
Which is ubiquitous in higher education. I worked in higher education. I just retired from 48 years at Hunter College. In the City University of New York. So I saw plagiarism firsthand, and not just in students, but in my colleagues as well. No names mentioned. Yes, a lot of that was taken right from life. And working with Stuart was always fun. Working with Stuart was always funny. Stuart was the funniest man I knew. And I miss that. There's not enough Stuart. There's not enough fun in my life because there's not enough Stuart.
Since we mentioned plagiarism, would it be a good time to play a little snippet of music here?
Ooh, yes.
Gruber's,
if it's what I think you're thinking.
Gruber's Waltz.
Interesting. Interesting. I fondly recall my research in Zurich when Dr. Hans Gruber and I would sit with our cups of steaming hot cocoa and read as the hours flew by. We obtained a new manuscript one day by a Dr. Hill of the USA. Gruber read it, then he froze, then he snorted cocoa out his nose.
Cooper shouted plagiat. He screamed plagiat in the German tongue. For plagiats, plagiarism, you see, and rather nice when it's sung. Germans say a plagiat, Cooper said it plagiat, just like deja vu, he'd been there before. Everything Hill wrote, Gruber wrote first, and that makes you a plagiator.
Ideas can occur in two places at one time. Great minds think alike.
Yes, that's true. And when, in this case, you refer to great minds, you're speaking of Gruber and who?
Sorry, I had to.
I know.
No, you did have to.
Yes.
Oh,
it's
I miss
so
that so
catchy.
much. I miss it so much.
Oh man.
That is such a brilliant song. I love that.
It is so brilliant. I was singing along the whole time on mute, but yeah. I still remember all the lyrics. It's that good.
Hello. Hi. Aloha. Hi,
Beltzman.
everybody. So happy to be here. So happy to see you all. Love and miss all of you. Love and miss Stuart. Sorry for all of our loss. And this is a great way to celebrate. So thank you for inviting me. Yeah, and I'm in the middle of a wedding. I'm Jewish and my nephew is marrying a Muslim girl. So I'm at a Muslim wedding. It's really exciting.
Wow.
But let's go for it. Let's have some fun.
Did you bring any brass instruments to play?
I did not, but I can oompa out of my other end anytime I like.
Yeah, so this is kind of an acting question. I want to start though. This is more directed directly for Rachel, and particularly, all right, there's a scene that works as a jump scare on stage, which I think would be very, very difficult to do. And Chris, you're a big part of this jump scare as well. And it is, everybody has seen the film now, so I'm not going to worry about spoilers, but it is the return of Dr. Halsey. And George, you're part of this too. And it just works so well. And I took several people to see this, and every time I would wait with bated breath for this part of the stage play, because in the musical, it's rare that you get someone jump in their seat. But like I took Layla, I took all these people who are actors, and every time when that door slams open, the jump is like, ah! And so I do want to hear from like how you built that tension to lead to that release on stage, and what that was like as an actor to make that so effective.
Well, I mean, Stuart he had such a strong vision. I have to tell you, I am the only one who thought I was in a drama when we were rehearsing this. I thought I was in a serious, piece of theater, and that is how he wanted me to play it. And so I know it sounds silly, but to be honest, it was all about just reacting as truthfully as I could. And I mean, everyone in the cast knows I am such a laugher on stage. Like I break up all the time because just like the one time.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
So I would be like locked in on Chris's eyes, and I'd be like, just stick, don't let me laugh. Just stick with me. And so it was just like, I think it was just trying to be as truthful as possible. And I know that sounds kind of like,
no, that's true. We were.
That was the way that we played it. And I think that's why it worked.
And I can't help but I think that over time we eventually started milking it longer and slower. And I would try to get the accompanist to go slower. Me, okay. To try, because I knew how delicious it was when people would start shifting, like, okay, more love story, and then George would pop out and be like, aha, we knew. So I think we got a little indulgent by the end. It was great.
We did, for sure. But in the beginning, I think, yes. So that's kind of the quick answer, I think, is just trying to be in the moment and react truthfully,
Well, and if anything, I want to pop in here too, is if anything, Stuart was always the one that would then pull us back and say, you're playing it too much, you're being too big, play it more honest. That was always Stuart's thing, is just to be as honest and truthful as possible. And I think that's why he was such a great director, and why the show worked as well as it did, because I mean, it's ridiculous what we're doing, and there's no reason why it should work, but it works because we're all playing it very seriously. And so Stuart was the one to always, because I was guilty of it too, whenever we'd start playing something too big or showboating too much, or I know this is unheard of for me, but mugging to the audience, it would be like, you're being a bit too big here, like take it down, make it honest, make it true, and it would always be better as a result of that.
I give life, I give the gift of reanimation. I give life, I give it freely, this is my calling. I'm the modern heir to Prometheus, bringing fire to man. I give life because I can.
He kind of dressed like an English professor, but he'd come and like, I'd be like covered in blood after some scene. He'd be like, I just have a note for you. And it would be like during the show. And he'd be like, I just, that was just a really honest, I think that was your best performance. I really, that was so honest, and it was like to Graham's point. So I just wanted, but it was always funny because it was doing the show backstage was like a surrealistic experience because it was so, we're all covered in blood and he was very contained and, so direct. So he was wonderful.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been scary if we didn't care about Meg and Dan. And, even the people who had not seen the film and their introductions to these characters are purely from your performances on stage. We end up caring about Meg and Dan. There's a lot of ups and downs that their relationship is experiencing. And so you don't want them to get hurt. And so when it does happen, it is really effective. So I do want to direct this one for George as the person who is creating the scare. That must have been really fun. I want to hear about that.
It was tough timing, but the set was, the set was actually pretty great for how minimalist it was. And, oftentimes the audience could sort of see me through the cracks of the thing. So that was a little odd.
I want to ask too, since you have experience with comedy, I feel like since you brought up timing, that comedy timing works in much the same kind of way that a scare, like something like that for a horror scene would work. Would you agree with that? Does that sound like it makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, Stuart had it nailed, and Mark, of course, it was, it was just a really, I think it was like the beginning of a phrase, was it not, Mark? Not a place, it wasn't like a button of a phrase.
I just got my Wi-Fi signal back. I'm back.
It was like that. It was that perfect of time.
Nutter is frozen.
Well, and for some of you like Mark and Cynthia and Liesel and Brian, you guys had to deal with not just costume change, but costume change that also involved makeup effects and having to do this very quickly. Talk a little bit about the challenges of that.
All right, before I lose my signal and have to go again, I just want to say all of this. Stuart was just amazing and really, modeled and provided a safe, fun place for all of us to play and create ensemble. And some of us had Second City backgrounds, some of us didn't, but everybody understood the theater and what Stuart was creating. He created just a safe environment for all of us to come together as a team. And there was no star backstage or on stage. And we all supported each other in every way possible through his leadership. And it was amazing. I did everything you could imagine. I was backstage changing people, throwing props, throwing the cat, except for the last night in Edinburgh. Sometimes, exactly. I forgot once and I'll never live it down. But we all did everything we possibly could to make that show work because it was an ensemble driven show. And Stuart wasn't just the director. He was a leader, and he was part of the ensemble. And he would do he wouldn't ask us to do anything he wouldn't do himself. And that was my experience with all of that.
Are you running for student council president or something?
Yeah, I am. And as a matter of fact, I'd like to just say, George has no background in comedy. So that was
to piggyback on that, I mean, yeah, like I feel like one of the things that struck me most about the process was, like, when you're doing a show in like the professional realm, you don't like play theater games, you know, you don't like, that's not like a thing that happens. And every day before rehearsal, Stuart would have us play a theater game. And we would kind of grumble about it, you know, and then we'd do it. But I look back on that and I just think how special that was and how cool that was, and how it really helped us. I mean, I'm getting, like, you know, choked up thinking about it, but like I'm such close friends with all of these people here. And that's not a thing that happens when you do just like a show. Like when you get hired to do a show, like you don't end up a lifelong friend with the people in the show. And that happened here. And I fully believe that was because of Stuart's leadership and of the way that he approached doing theater. For him, it was a group process, and it was a way of being a community. And it wasn't just a job. It was, no, we're making something, we're making art together. And you know, and I think that's true in all of his work, you know, like I think that Stuart really viewed everything that he did with an eye for making something like truly special, something truly immortal, and something very important. And yes, like, I know there are people in the world that I'm sure look at Re-Animator and think, oh, it's like bloody schlock. And I'm sure there are people in the world that look at Re-Animator the musical. Yeah, right. I know. And I know there are people that look at Re-Animator the musical and probably think the same thing. But Stuart didn't look at it like that. And the way that he approached this, the whole process from start to finish. I mean, and even like Rachel was saying, notes in the middle of shows. I got a note 5 minutes before the final show we ever did. I got a note. He came up to me. It was 5 minutes before curtain, and he said, "Hey, I have a thought. I have a note for you." And I said, "Stuart, it's closing night. We've been doing this show for 5 years. You're giving me a note now?" And he
there
said,
are rules against this.
yeah. And he said, union. Yeah, right. And he said, well, yeah, but this is the last time we have to get it right.
Yeah, that's great. Great.
Like,
let's just be clear. I had a really good time doing the show, but I don't like any of you people. I'm only here because I'm getting paid. Okay. So I don't know what Graham was talking about, friendship and lifelong. That's all bullshit. I haven't heard from Graham in a long time.
Mark is currently laying on a daybed in my room right now next to me. So I don't know what the problem is.
And like I think going back to the, you know, all those quick changes and everything, one thing that Stuart always impressed upon us was that anything was possible in the show. And every time I would say, "Stuart, I can't do that. I don't have time to do this quick change." He would just say, "Yes, you do. You just do it." And somehow I would be like, "Oh, okay," and then I would manage it. Like I like the getting into the final rig, getting out of my shotgun wound to the head zombie into the final headless rig to have Graham battle the contestant. I was like, "Stuart, I don't have the time to get out of that one costume and another costume and then back out on stage because I can't see where I'm going." And he just very calmly would just always be like, "No, you do. You can do it. You can do it." And I always found a way to do it.
Do more.
If I can just speak to that really quickly, I think that Brian did the most of anyone
Yeah, I
in the
think
show.
so too.
Like
and I kept getting new ones, like the full Rufus
Well,
one
you-
in Vegas. The full Rufus cast
You-
in Vegas.
Well, yeah, I mean, you show that you can do it, and then that makes you reliable, and then you have to do more. So that's your first problem. But when I understudied and filled in for Brian, I did not come out on stage fully clothed once that entire. I was like always the shoes, with no shoes, I couldn't see, and I was so relieved when you came back because I did not want to ever do that again. So I don't know how you did it, but you were the master of doing the most in that show.
Thank
My
you.
hat is off to you. Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why the cast was so much like a family, which is an environment that Stuart engendered, is that Stuart had enormous admiration for all of you. I mean, he really thought that what you did was incredibly special, unique, and to be nurtured and celebrated. And we talked about it. He loved all you guys, and you know that. And but he thought not only did he love you as people, he just thought each of you was enormously talented, and he was certainly right about that.
Not me, Dean.
I want to chime in.
I wanted to say the same thing.
I want to chime in on the esprit de corps. We did 25 shows in 30 days in Edinburgh, and he ran the light board for every performance. And he supervised the construction of the set and the mopping up of the blood. We put the whole decapitation table into a truck and drove it out to a convention just to do a 15-minute appearance, because why not? Try and bring in more audience. He was such a wonderful collaborator, and something he always said, and I keep coming back to this, is like everybody in the show played to win. It's like, I think, and I'm not sure if it's the title of his new memoirs, but at the same time, everything's truthful. His catchphrase was always more is more extreme style, more everything. But like everybody played to win the villain, and he was always very, very tight with villains. The villain was like on his own hero's quest. He told me something I'll never forget. He said, a movie is only as good, like a horror movie is only as good as its villain. A story is only as good as its villain.
See my new serum at work.
Dead cat tissue. Reagent.
Magnificent. I will be famous. You'll be cleaning bedpans like a rule. Colleagues will laud me, colleagues will praise me, and colleagues will be saying,
Yes, Dr. Richard Herbert West, you're alive. As you might have guessed, this isn't a dream, this is real. Tell me, how do you feel? You.
Yeah, he was one in a million. It was not to get down for a second, but we lost him in the first week of the pandemic, and it kind of put me, like with everybody else in the collective trauma we're experiencing. I mean, it really put me into a pretty dark place because we'd gotten pretty close over the last few years, and it was so tough. I mean, it's over a year later, and we still. I mean, this is the closest thing really we've had to a memorial in over a year now. So how wonderful we can do this.
Dean, is there any hope of either a cast album or some sort of remounting of this? I know you probably get asked this all the time, but since we're all here, is there any kind of word?
Yes,
we also have the Q&A kind of flash and saying, are we going to have anything?
Yes. Well, we recorded a cast album, and it will be released. There were certain reasons why we were holding it back. As Paul mentioned, a year or so before Stuart passed away, we started to contemplate adapting the musical as an animated film, and we walked down that road for a while, and then Stuart passed away. There are some discussions that I'm having with certain folks about whether that might be feasible. So we're working on that, and I mean, I'm hoping, and I'm anticipating there will be a reanimation of Re-Animator the musical in some form or another.
I've been counting on that money for a long time, man. I hope it happens soon.
Yeah, I know it was always all about the money for you guys.
Totally
true. What were you making? $7 a week at the beginning? I don't know. It was
Easy. I'm trying to up my quote. Easy.
Wait a minute.
Can you believe there was a while we were doing 2 shows a night with cheap pizza in between and a midnight performance. I don't know how we did that.
Whiskey.
But I gotta say, with the cheap pizza in between the 2 shows, my very favorite memory of that whole period was one night we had this huge thing of pizza. We were sitting up there, we were gonna eat it, do the show in between, and Stuart wheeled in like one of those old, like what you might see in like a middle school classroom, it was a TV VCR combo on like a stand on wheels. I don't know where he got it, and he wheeled it in. And he had in his hand his personal VHS copy of Dolls, and he said, "Hey, have any of you guys seen this?" And some people were like, "Yeah," some were like, "No." And he goes, "I don't know. I've always thought that this is a really great movie, and I don't think it gets enough credit. And I don't know. Do y'all want to watch this with me in between shows?" And so we ate pizza and watched Dolls with Stuart giving running commentary on the VHS, in which he had an extensive VHS collection. Anytime he would lend me a movie, he would be like, "Oh, you should see this," and he'd give me like a VHS tape. And I go, "Okay, how am I gonna watch this?" Yes, we ate cheap pizza and did 2 shows a night, but sometimes you get to watch Dolls with Stuart Gordon, and that's pretty special.
Yeah.
I have to say that Stuart is right about both those things. That movie's amazing.
Agreed.
He was right about everything. Even those times where I thought he'd lost his mind, it's like the 2 days later, I'd say, I know exactly why he did it. It was amazing. I learned so much from him. And I remember the shock when, there's nobody ever sat down. He can't stand people sitting down. And there was no furniture. And I love the energy that happens from that is just so cool.
I was gonna say on Stuart sharing, and it was very sweet of him. It was a long day of rehearsals. When we had to do like a bunch of rehearsals to squeeze them in for whatever reason. We were there for a long time, and I was hungry, and he wanted me to get something right. And I was like, "Man, I haven't eaten. I'd like to go get some meat." He goes, "Oh, Carolyn packed me a lunch. I'll share with you." And I'm like, "Okay." And he had an apple and 3 strawberries for us to share. It was so recreational lunch. I was like, okay. And we'll say I was hungry when I left there.
The recreational lunch. The working man's lunch.
Why don't we take a few questions from the audience? Lauren, you want to read us the one of the first questions you have there?
I have to say goodbye, but thank you, everybody. It was all good to see you.
Mark.
I love you all.
Love you, Mark. Miss you.
Die.
Bye.
Die.
Oh, he said die. He didn't say
die.
Yeah, he said die.
He said die.
As he should.
Just so I'm not a disembodied voice. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Lauren.
Hey, Lauren.
Hello. I have some questions for you guys. This is, I guess, specifically for Liesel, maybe. When or what triggered your intro of your ukulele accident for your dancing corpse?
I feel like Cynthia could answer this better than I could. I'll say for me, I showed up at a fitting / rehearsal one day and found out that was what was happening. Just if you hadn't seen it, in the end with the zombies, I originally was playing a surgery gone wrong zombie, and then I suddenly got turned into a hula dancer with a ukulele. A tragic ukulele accident. But Cynthia is the one who knows this story. The genesis.
That was no accident. That was no accident.
Well, it didn't go how I thought it would anyway.
No, Mark Nutter had been having dinner with me and my husband, Chris. I don't remember, but exactly how it went. Mark, do you exactly remember how that conversation went? Because we came up with it on that night.
Yeah, after a certain amount of alcohol,
yes,
I think I just blurted. A hula dancer should sing. They shoved my ukulele up my ass,
and we laughed. We laughed for a half an hour, and then we said, "Stuart's never going to go for this." I remember that.
Yeah, we said he won't go for that. We can't do that. Let's try it anyway. And we got the thumbs up, and thumbs up to Liesel Hanson as well. For
I mean, who's gonna say no to that? I'm already in the show. Like, sure, why not?
How did you approach the costume designer with that creative idea? What did the costume designer say? You want me to put what? Where?
Every night?
My favorite part is
really hold it in.
that it was attached to a elasticy, so it had a little sproing to it. So I did put a lot of effort and energy into sproinging it around as I zombied my way across the stage.
I do have to ask, as the show.
I think we also should point out this is not in the film. In case.
Yeah, don't watch the movie expecting the ukulele. You'll be
really
let down.
Although we actually should do a director's cut or something where we add it would be good.
CGI.
That was always what it was like.
Would you have done it?
Going too far was what Stuart. Well, that was about more is more, as Jesse said, or some. It was always about, we always felt our job as writers to begin with was to write something that a producer would look at and go, oh, you can't do that. And then you would know where the line was. If you didn't go over the line, you never knew where the line was. So, it was never a mistake to bring something to Stuart that you thought, we can't possibly do that. Because that was just a challenge to him. He would find a way to do it.
He was, as an artist, he was fearless, both a filmmaker and as a theater director. I mean, it was after Re-Animator the musical, Stuart and I produced a play called Taste, which Chris McKenna starred in.
Never heard.
And it
was
was
brilliant.
one of the most daring pieces of theater I think I've ever seen.
Oh, hello there. I'm Stuart Gordon, and I'll be directing the world premiere of Taste at the Sacred Fools this spring. Taste tells the true story of a man who puts an ad on the internet for someone that he can kill and eat. The play shows us their first and last meeting in real time. It's a cooking show you'll never see on the Food Network. A little food for thought. They share an appetizer, and although I can't tell you what that is, I can give you a little clue. It gives new meaning to dinner and a show.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, like there's a lot of the cast, there's a lot of you guys that work, as the years go on, like work on different things. Takeshi says, seems a lot of cast from the musical reunited in the movie Bliss. And definitely in other projects. How is it working all together again when you guys reunite and do these projects?
Well, that's one of the unsung heroes, the stage managers of these productions. Joe Begas, who directed Bliss and was stage manager for most of this. Nikki's pushing me to drop your pieces.
I'm going broke. I can't live off of nothing.
And I can't live off 10% of nothing.
Joe was stage manager when we first started doing Re-Animator, and of course he's gone on to become a very successful indie horror director. And I don't know, like to speak to getting to work with everybody outside of the realm of Re-Animator. It's like gathering at a barbecue with your friends, and with your family. Like really, like I remember there was one time I was driving somewhere in Hollywood and I saw Rachel walking down the street. And I was like, oh, and I hadn't seen her in probably 3 years. I mean, it had been like a long time. And it was such a lovely, I pulled over, we got out, we chatted for a while. And it's such a unique experience. And I can't stress this enough, where this doesn't normally happen. This is not the usual thing that we have here with these people. And it truly, working with everybody. I mean, Bliss was a wonderful experience. The weird home movies that I make Jesse shoot in my apartment. That's that's also very uncommon. But
illegal.
And illegal. Anyway, point is that we're really a family, and getting together with all these people in any sort of setting is really it's just like getting together with your family that you haven't seen in a long time. It's very seamless and smooth and lovely.
I want to chime in. We all went over by Niagara in a barrel together for 5 years. I mean, part of it was the shared experience of 200 performances. And that's really rare. I mean, unless you're on Broadway or in a tour, you don't do 200 performances of anything. 20 performances is rare. It was a remarkable esprit de corps. I do want to mention about Bliss because it just shows, there's an orbit that all intersects. Graham was in it and also produced it, and Joe Begas directed it, and Chris McKenna had a great role in it, and Beltzman got killed in it, and I had a little cameo in this absolutely nightmarish overnight shoot in a Skid Row bar. And Graham was there just feeding everybody Mexican food at 3 a.m, because that's what he was doing as producer. He wasn't even acting that day. He was just feeding us.
Yeah, I agree. I think it just creates like a shorthand when you know each other. And Joe just, oh, bye, Dean.
Bye, Dean.
Joe just texted me and texted me, hey, do you want to be in my movie? And I just wrote back, sure. And so I didn't know, and I was like, do I get to get killed? And he's like, sadly, no. But that is my goal. I'd like to get killed again. So if anyone is casting, I'm ready. But it's really fun to get to work together again in other ways. And I think it proves that Stuart built such a strong community for us that we want to keep connecting with each other, working together again.
Yeah, I got to do a movie poster for Joe. I got hired as an artist, and I'm not an actor, but he hired me to do a VFW, his great action movie. So I got to do a painting for that, and that was a lot of fun. And it was just another part of whenever Rihanna, we call ourselves a Rihanna fam because we've become a family. I come a running, you know. What do you want me to do? I'll do it.
We went from seeing the musical at the Steve Allen, and then went to New York, and we went to Las Vegas.
Dressed up as Elvises.
And walked through the casino, was splattered with blood by Graham. It was the most insane, amazing, fantastic. We didn't get to go to Edinburgh because it was like, we can go to New York or Edinburgh. New York is closer. You know. So
every iteration
that we could, we were there, and just to be a crazy fan. You know, I had never seen Re-Animator as the movie, so my introduction to you guys was the musical. And Paul goes, "You've got to see the movie."
Well, she brought it up. She goes, "There's Re-Animator musical." I go, "Oh, that's nice." She goes, "It's directed by Stuart Gordon." I went, "I'm freaking there."
He was always talking about Re-Animator, the movie. And so I was kind of like looking at the newspaper back in the days when it was newspaper. And I was like, there's a play musical. Let's go. Let's go. And then it was like,
we got to meet Stuart, and I was like,
it was insane.
Can't believe I'm meeting Stuart Gordon.
And
then our evolution with the show, we just kept living with it.
And getting to know the cast, and we got to know Beth and Miguel because we were always like vying for who are those people in the front seat all the time? Who is our competition trying to get into the splash zone, because we were always getting there early. So
we had to drive all the way up from San Diego to get in line early.
Yeah, well, that didn't cut it with us. We were like, you know.
We first met Beth and Miguel when they brought body bags, and as we're waiting in line, took pictures.
Here's my body bag.
Bags on the sidewalk.
Yeah, and we were like, we're underdressed. You know, it's like we're upping the game, you know.
So we hit it off from then on.
And then it was like, I remember it's like the Rufus thing, and there was the puppet, and I saw the Rufus thing. I'm like, we got to get this for Brian. Brian needs a Rufus. And so we just love everyone. And just seeing that little clip in the beginning, like it made my heart happy and break at the same time, because just to see all your faces, we love you so much, and just want to thank you.
We even had a cast party at our house. So
yeah,
we love you guys. Thank you.
We love you guys.
Yeah, you guys made it so amazing. You know, we've done plenty of plays, and I'd love to show up an hour early just to mingle with the people who were back to see us again. It was so great. It made it so magical for us all.
And that you guys came to Las Vegas, and that Miguel and Beth came to, Edinburgh, and Mike Anderson came to New York, and it was just amazing to have that.
Yeah. From a fan perspective, it was something special, and we even lost count of how many shows we saw, but every chance we got,
it was like,
we went.
It's like, what are we doing this weekend? We're going to go see Re-Animator, of course, and we're telling friends and bringing people, getting tickets as gifts, because you've got to see this. You've got to see this. Is amazing.
And it was beyond, since the show had ended, I would always see Stuart around, like, at restaurants. And he would always allude to me, hey, I'd like you to work on Re-Animator, the musical animated. And I was like utterly daunted, like, how can I work on The Simpsons. I'm an animator for The Simpsons, so that's my business. But I was too daunted, and finally I said, okay, let's do it. And it was one of the biggest honors to work directly with this guy. He was a legend before I even met him. I was one of my favorite directors, and to work with him one-on-one at his dining room table, going over hundreds of drawings. And you guys were talking about giving notes and, working on something to death. I was sitting there, I do hundreds of drawings and lay it out, and we just go over and over something, and I'd go away, do the changes, come back, and we just continually go back and forth. And it was painful because he was pushing me beyond where I could go, but it was so satisfying.
Well, it's funny because as fans going, I felt like we had to up our game to match what like Stuart was doing in the show. Because I think the most fun was when we all dressed up as the corpses that you guys call out for when you come out into the audience. And we were so excited, like, oh, let's all dress up as the corpses with the toe tags. And then when they come out, they'll look at us and we'll be them.
Yeah, it was utterly interactive. Graham would come down the stage and go, burn victim, shotgun,
Good
wound
wound
to
to
the
the
head.
head.
Well, I remember I remember the first night that y'all did that. I in my mind, because I saw like you down there and I knew what you were going for, and in my mind I was going, I hope they got it right. Because I'm gonna have to do something if they didn't get it right.
Wasn't Kevin in the wrong spot? Wasn't he one seat over?
At some point, I think so.
Beth, you did that thing with like an electric baby or something.
Oh yeah, I had the zombie
that was
baby
the
that
Halloween.
came out.
Yeah, that was the costume contest.
That's how I won that music from the. I have the only CD right now, I think.
Bill Moseley chose you, Beth.
Bill Moseley chose you. That was also the same night that Eli Roth was in the front of the audience that same night, and I demolished him with blood. It was great.
Yes.
Did he sit in the puke seat?
Oh yeah, he was in the puke seat. He was right front and center, the exact perfect seat. It was, and I saw clear regret in his eyes. And I was just spraying. I was like, well, I mean, come on, dude, you're Eli Roth. I'm just gonna obliterate you. And
actually,
it was
Graham, on that note, with the Splash Zone, for anyone in the audience who never got to see it, most of the Splash Zone gags, were very chaotic. But you had the one gag that you could pinpoint accuracy aim with that kind of the climactic gag. Can you talk about
the puke? Was pretty pointed.
Oh, the puke. Yes, that's true.
I would always aim for Mike Anderson, though.
Yeah, I mean that whole ending song, like having literally a hose that I could aim at whoever I wanted to. It was great. I mean, talk about like a dream scenario for an actor.
Well, the good part is when on closing night at the Steve Allen, Stuart finally sat in the Splash Zone.
Yeah. He sure did.
More than anybody else.
He sure did. Yeah. I mean, it was. Yeah. I mean, that night when Stuart sat there, he told me before the show. He said, "I'm going to sit in the Splash Zone," and I said, "Stuart." Oh, there he is. Yep, exactly. Yep. I was like, I'm gonna nail you, right? He goes, and I did.
How many venues actually passed on the project when they realized that the blood would never ever come out from the rafters, the seats, the floors, the walls, the ceilings?
Actors, yeah.
I remember in Vegas, and I sat right next to Chris McKenna in the front row.
Yep.
And at the very end, Graham just nailed, the blood hose just nailing in the very front row, and getting that splashback was fun.
Yeah, it was just so great. And what was fun too was it was like, we talk about the sense of play that Stuart engendered, and like that was what that was all about. Like it was such a moment between audience and actor that was so like totally like unprecedented for me as a performer, to have this moment of, I mean, I would look someone in the eye, because we had everything timed out. I would look someone directly in the eye, and they knew what was about to happen, and I knew what was about to happen. And then I just hosed them down with blood. And it wasn't even like a, it's not like it was, that's not the natural way that an exploding intestine would act. No, that's the way that
prove it.
Right. That's the way that Graham Skipper chooses for an exploding intestine to act.
Down below the stage in a little crawl space, pumping the thing.
Oh my god, so good. Yeah, it was. This show and like moments like that, like were really some of the very best of my life, and just remembering, that sort of encounter with the audience and with frankly all of you, like Miguel and Beth and Paul and Laurie, like and Lauren, like that's how we met. Like literally my first memory of most of you is looking down on you from the stage and showering you with blood. And what a weird way to start a relationship, but I wouldn't have asked for anything better. And it's pretty special. And Stuart, is the one that for sure is to thank for all of that.
Well, just couldn't really tell a story too. I mean, that's the setup there goes back to Jesse carrying the brain down to the audience.
Take this in your hands, feel the wind. What becomes of the human brain when vital function cease? No more blood, no more oxygen. It's time to rest in peace. Time to rest in peace. Brain death follows like a loyal pet. Is it on a schedule? You bet.
So you get a little bit. You get something that at the time seems way off the charts, and then later you're going to go even further than that. Well, that's the way Stuart worked. It's let's set him up and then let's really hit him. And the setup was great too. I mean, he never missed a chance. He always saw an opportunity in every scene to make it, if not interactive, then as active as possible. It was wonderful work. It was wonderful working with him. But it was as the writer, as I said before, I was the first person off the project, so I would forget all about it, and then I'd go see it, and so I got to be a fan too, and it was great. It was as much fun as it must have been, because I had been in some of his shows back in college. As much fun as it was to be in the show, it was also great fun to be a fan. It was wonderful.
Lauren, do we have any more questions from the audience?
We do. Mike Anderson is suggesting a Re-Animator the Musical song night at Cahuenga General Store.
Oh.
I would be up for that.
I will drive.
Same.
I will drive.
I'm in.
Post-pandemic,
I'm always in. Always in.
Nutter, that's gonna be a nutter operation.
I have something happening on that night. I'm busy.
Is there going to be a splash zone?
I'll make chocolate blood.
I'm in.
That would have to be maybe a sandwich zone where people would throw sandwiches.
Their sandwiches are so good, though.
I think the whole place is the sandwich zone. So good.
Rename it. And then one more question from Takeshi again. What was the funniest or most interesting audience reaction during the show? I know, Graham, you definitely talked about one-on-one eye contact and nailing people with blood, especially Eli Roth. But, this is for anyone. What did you experience from the audience?
Wasn't there somebody who passed out or died?
Yeah, somebody had a heart attack. We had an ambulance, right?
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah, there was
My favorite was we had some blessed soul in the audience with a diagnosis that was responding in very inappropriate and unexpected ways. And it was magical. It actually made it a very, very magical moment, especially when she died. I think that was the spoilers. It's just like where everyone the chorus is "She's dead," and there's like a big laugh, but like a laugh from a Muppet. It was wonderful.
That was very challenging for me because I was dead and I'm prone to breaking. I'm crying right now thinking about it.
No.
That person was so nice too. They were so kind, but their timing
was perfect. There was one night where some guy had clearly gone on a date with a girl to see the show, and they sat in the splash zone, and he was in like a nice white shirt and like clearly was not into the show, and you can see the first few rows, like you can see them, and he's just squirming. He's not happy about it. And in the final number, when I'm with that hose, I see him just being like, absolutely not, I don't want to be here. And he stands up and starts to leave. And so I do the only thing that I can do, which is just hose him as he's walking out. And that was pretty, he wasn't happy about it, but I sure was. And I think the audience was as well.
Yeah.
I would like when the audience would sing along with the song. That was always great.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it would be most of the audience, and they knew the songs of those that came to many shows. That was always awesome to be listening to that, and you guys knew it verbatim and singing. You were good on your notes are great and everything. So that was always special to hear that.
We practiced that Miskatonic fight song a lot.
Fight on Miskatonic, push 'em back and nail 'em. Burn 'em at the stake, the way we did to the witches and sailors, roundly judge them and condemn them. The reward is worth the risk, and it's MISKATONIC, a victory for dear old, victory for dear old, victory for dear old Liz.
Yeah, Beth printed out the lyrics. We handed it out.
Pom-poms and stuff. That was just
great.
I do remember one really eccentric friend of Graham and Brian's who brought his young daughter and sat in the front row.
Oh, yes. Oh,
very young.
He was
very young.
terrified, and he was talking in a very loud whisper. I think it was during me and Chris's scenes because I could hear, now, this is not real. What's happening is not real. And she's like, I'm scared, Daddy. I'm scared. I was like, this is insane.
I remember that.
I sure do remember that night. Wow.
Her about, I think
This wasn't technically during the show, but I remember one night right before the show, I used to like peek out and look at the audience and see like how the house was. And a friend of the show and a friend of a lot of people here, Angus Oblong, was in the audience, and he's a very well-known clown, and he's sitting in the audience in full clown makeup, and he's just sitting there, and behind him is like a little 10-year-old girl, and all of a sudden I'm just looking out, and he all of a sudden raises up a hand mirror, so he locks eyes with the girl behind him, and is like. And the little girl goes, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on?
Scarred for life.
Why did he have a hand mirror?
For just such an occasion.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's true.
Not
it's
the
true.
first time.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And did anyone else, because we're getting close to where we said we were going to end, but did anybody else have any memories of Stuart or any anecdotes they wanted to tell about working with him?
I mean, I told mine, my just story about him giving me a note 5 minutes before closing night. But I think that's really indicative of who he was. He was all about making the best show possible. I mean, the man, like Jesse said, like he ran lights every night. I would have fans, that would come up afterwards and would say, "Oh, is Stuart here? Is Stuart here?" And I'd say, "Oh yeah, it's him." And they go, "Well, that's the lighting guy," and they'd just be shocked that was Stuart. And it's because he cared. And that's my main memory of him. When Jesse and I had a really lovely afternoon in Vegas where the two of us went with him to the pinball museum, and we played pinball and air hockey and video games and spent the afternoon with him. And that's one of my most cherished memories, to be quite honest. It was really lovely.
I remember in Scotland, I was so excited that Stuart gave us the opportunity to sing any line we wanted. One line, we can do anything. And I was able to sing "The situation's ugly like an old beat up hoe. I'm swinging into action like Black G.I. Joe."
I remember that.
Yes.
And so I loved him for that. Anytime I could do a little extra or do something, and Stuart was like, "Yeah, Black G.I. Joe," and we talked.
And you get a writing credit. That's right. You get a writing credit. You get a writing credit.
Stuart was my date to a film festival that I went to during the like slightly after, I think, the first run of Re-Animator, for a short film that I booked because somebody saw Re-Animator. And it was so lovely. It was, it was like sort of a fancy affair, and it made me so happy to be able to hang out with him in real life. And he came to everything I invited him to. I think, every premiere, everything. And at the at the film festival screening, we're there and everybody's all dressed up, and it's a competition. It's sort of a big deal, and at some point, his breathing goes not during my piece, but his breathing goes real soft, and I'm looking. I don't really want to draw attention to it, but I feel like I'm starting to hear snoring, just a gentle snore. And I remember the rest of because the only people who were there are people who made these movies. The rest of the time, I'm like so tense because I'm not nudging, I'm not grabbing. I don't feel comfortable with that, but I'm just giving a little periodic elbow shiftage of pressure of my I was just like, if somebody in this audience hears Stuart Gordon snoring during their dramatic short film, this is gonna be, but I just think about how lovely it was that he went to that with me and supported me, and then how funny it was that I wound up being like higher time.
I'd love to share that the first year of the show, I was doing an opera up in Santa Barbara, and he drove all the way up to see it. And it meant so much to me. I was doing La Boheme, and I was only in the first 2 acts out of 4. So for acts 3 and 4, I came and I sat with him in the audience. And, La Boheme is so overplayed. I've done it 4 times. I would never even want to see it. But by the end of the show, he was weeping like a baby. He was so moved by this very boilerplate. It was a good production, but it was like so wonderful to see what, he was notorious for being such a kind of hardcore horror director. He was such a soft, gentle, kind of like wise, generous person. A few years ago, Graham and I had a wonderful experience recording a commentary with him on the movie, talking about the musical. And that was maybe one of the last public things he did. And that was wonderful. And I also worked with him on his play, Sirens of Titan, that from the Organic Theater days. But he was so wonderful. And part of why it was so hard and so devastating when he died is he had like 10 different projects he was working on, including the movie. And I want to credit Paul Wee, Emmy award-winning Paul Wee. The production art, Stuart showed it to me near the end of his life. It was incredible, the Re-Animator, the musical animated movie he was working on. And there were stage shows he wanted to do with me, and he was still trying to do stuff with Jeffrey Combs, and he wasn't played out. We needed another 10 years of movies or theater from him. That's
20, 30, 40. Yeah. And as he went through his life, he was a fan. Perhaps more than anything, his family was important to him. He was a great family man, but you're all his family. He made family wherever he went. And most of you have worked with him more than once because you're a fan, because he loves your work, but he loved being around you, and he wanted to take you with. I mean, he dumped me. I can't tell you how many times, but he loved you guys. He loved you. He loved the people in the Organic. I mean, he loves Jeffrey. He loves Jeff and Barbara and the original cast from Re-Animator. He was a loving soul, and he made family and took his family with him wherever he went. Wherever he is now, he's thinking, he's aware of this, and he's loving it.
Oh, I just want to jump in and say I really felt that way. He supported me so much creatively and I'm a writer too. He read my screenplays. He came to like a table read, and Carolyn read one of the roles, and he and Carolyn had a baby shower for me when I got pregnant, Max. And she said, "Do you have an idea of what the theme should be?" And I was like, it should be a horror baby shower, obviously. But she wouldn't. She was like, "Oh no, we're not doing that. We are not doing that." So we didn't. But I think it would have been cool. But yeah, he was just, he was countless times that he was such a supportive, voice to me. And I think, I'm realizing today how much some of his wisdom is, you know, learned later. Like in the moment when we were in the show, I don't think I wasn't aware of the man behind the curtain, you know, pulling the levers, but he had a totally clear idea of what he was doing, and it was really a pretty amazing experience. Obviously, here we are 10 years later.